know, it's just occurred to me we really haven't had a completely successful test of this equipment.
I blame myself. So do I.
No sense worrying about it now. Let's get ready. Switch me on.
The problem with you is do something so real.
Welcome to SPARC After Dark.
Human sacrifice. Dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria.
And thank you for joining us here at SPARC After Dark, our inaugural show. We have a great show lined up for everybody. We have Dale Kazmarek, a 40-year veteran in parapsychological research. We have a nice hour-long interview with Dale and a lot of good information regarding evidence contamination, his view on what's been happening in paranormal investigation over the past 4 decades, and also a lot of people know this, the largest collection of spirit photography in the world.
The world.
True that.
In addition, we're going to be going over some best practices for paranormal investigation to mitigate contamination on your own investigation. And we're going to poke fun at quite a few people in the process. And you might want to have the kiddies leave the room, because we're going to get in the nitty-gritty and a little dirty, too, maybe, if you're lucky.
And who are you joined by?
It's me, Cameron Ellis, along with
Darcy Lane.
And Caleb Benedict.
And the three of us are going to be your hosts for this evening.
Whether you like it or not.
Get ready, folks.
I already don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
You're going to like it.
You're going to like it.
I'm going to make you like it.
you see where this is going, folks, don't you?
It takes some getting used to.
Acquired taste.
So
Right now.
So the first show, the audience spoke loud and clear. They want to see a show on fake evidence, and contamination.
That was super surprising.
Yeah, I was completely floored.
I thought that the whole team dating thing would have been like
That was going to be my vote too.
way up there.
You know?
I think it's still like people don't really want to talk about that.
Well, no, that's just I'm saying. You look closer. You sound far away.
Okay.
Or just pretend you're Howard. Just get in close. You don't have to swallow the damn thing.
Oh
I'm
my
just
God. This is going to be a problem. I can already tell.
Yeah, it is for sure.
Great.
So, yeah, I was completely surprised by the voting on the topic of the show. In case everybody out there doesn't know, we left it open for the public to let us know. We gave them 5 choices on what they wanted to have as the topic of our pilot show. Some of it was, psychics. What was it, phony or phenomenal?
And these are my play on words, just so everyone knows.
Yeah, these were mostly Darcy's ideas.
That's great.
And also there was the team dynamics, dating, drama, and just all the stuff that goes on.
Well, all the
between them.
reasons why,
Why teams split up.
Yeah, it's super important. I don't know why people didn't vote for that. I would have voted for that.
Yeah. But by far, out of all the topics, there was 5 in total, some really good ones. And everybody just seemed to go right to the faked evidence and contamination. Now, I'm not sure if there was some groupthink going on there, but by far, we're talking like 1 or 2 people for all the other topics and like 14 or 15 for all the rest. So we're going to go ahead and talk about evidence contamination and faked evidence, both intentional and unintentional, because there's 2 distinct forms there. And I think a lot of people don't really group them together. It's not always about the fake photographs that we see floating around on Facebook and at Google and whatnot, because we've got our fair share over here. We've had plenty of them. There's ones also that just have, they're unintentional, or the pareidolia. So we'll talk about all that stuff too. But before we go any further, so you got blood sneezed on you today,
I
Darcy.
got blood sneezed on me, like a full on just splatter on. Yeah, it was terrible.
Oh, so it wasn't a spray; it was more of a splatter.
It was a spray. It was probably the loudest sneeze I've ever heard come out of a human, with blood projectiling out. It was awful.
And they broke a blood vessel, like literally, right there.
Yeah, they did. Blood pouring out. Had to run and get the gloves. The whole deal. Head back. Yeah, it was awful.
And of course, they didn't say excuse me or anything like that.
Oh, nothing like that. No, of course not.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay, just checking.
They just wanted to share their DNA apparently today.
Too easy. You can't give us an open door like that. Okay.
I just can't help but looking at this screen in front of me where you have put the word fakery.
I'm looking at pancakes.
I'm looking at fakery. First of all, I don't think that's a word.
Probably not. No, these are our notes. These are our show notes.
It's a fakery.
Trickery.
Like fakery.
This is what we read off of to make it feel like we know what we're doing. So you're not really supposed to,
Okay, you've got mitigate, which when I hear the word mitigate, I think of lawyers, attorneys, and courtrooms. Next to the word fakery, which is, I do not even believe a word.
And your point is?
You know what it means, so let's move on.
I'm just,
Okay.
Whatever, grammar police.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
How many fake photographs do you think that, between the 3 of us, that we've seen?
Hundreds.
You've probably seen a lot more.
Lots.
I mean, how about ones that have been intentionally sent to us for review?
Well, there's that one that was intentionally sent to us that we thought was real, that turns out was a joke later. Remember that one?
In your house?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Somebody took a picture at a party in Darcy's house.
When I was having experiences in my house, mind you.
Yes. Which is interesting. We'll talk about that at a different show.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, and the person inserted a...
Don't say that. Different word, please.
That doesn't work either.
No. They overlaid. That's iffy. Yeah, that works.
Well, we're already down that path, so you can really turn anything into...
Just don't say penetrate. Whatever.
Okay. So they penetrated a picture of a ghost face.
There it is.
Inside one of a picture that was taken at Darcy's house during a party. So it's different when you see yourself in a photo with a ghost coming up, like out of the corner, that you didn't quite notice was there before.
I about had a heart attack.
So how many fake photographs have you seen, Darcy? I mean, maybe not the ones that were, there's lots of them out there that circulate for years and years and years. And then there's ones that get sent to us directly.
Like that have been sent to me directly?
Mm-hmm. Or SPARC in general.
Quite a few. Maybe 50, 60. Maybe not sent to SPARC directly, but since I've been investigating paranormal, 50, 60.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we've received a portion of that, like since SPARC has been in existence.
Right.
And I would probably... I think out of them that I've seen, there's only been like 1 or 2 that really, really piqued my interest. That didn't have, artifacts that were common to, rendering issues in the camera, or there was just some other natural reason for it, maybe lens flare, which does come in a lot of different forms and fashions. A lot of people get confused. Reflections of lens flare, all these different things. And that's why we get a lot of these photographs. But there was that one where a friend of yours sent that.
She's not a friend, but yeah, the person sent a photograph to me. She thought it would be funny. I was experiencing some paranormal activity in my house during the time. It was short-lived, but there was things happening, and she thought it would be funny to send a photograph that she had doctored through some sort of application on her phone to me and watch me freak out. And it wasn't very funny, but that's what she did.
And they were using a very common app that's on the iPhone. What is it, Ghost Cam?
Ghost Cam, I can't remember what it's called.
There's a couple of them that are out there.
Basically what it does is it superimposes some ghostly image over a photo that you already have in your phone, and quite convincingly so until you understand what those ghost app pictures start to look like, and then you can kind of pick them out. Yeah,
and you can change the opacity on it, the overlay, the colors and hues that are used in it to try and match the photograph. There's a few editing tools that are included in it to make it as realistic as possible. And it's meant to be a joke app, but it pisses the hell out of us paranormal investigators, that's for sure. But there is some good news, though. If you guys go onto Google Images or Yahoo Pics, whatever, if you type in the name of these applications, people have posted the templates of all the different ghosts. So they give you, like on one big sheet, they give you all the different little pics that can be merged into your photograph. So you will see the same ghost, the same little ghost girl.
It's a ghost girl, some little Native American looking ghost girl.
And that's one of about maybe
there's
30.
Tons of them.
Yeah.
But there's a whole bunch of different ghosts you could choose from. But once you get used to seeing the picture, you can pick it out in almost any photograph if they're using that. And I don't know why people would want to do that. They want to send it because we've received those before. They send it to us. Oh my God, I caught this in my backyard. They just want the attention. They just want to talk to a paranormal investigator. I don't know what the hell.
I would like to think that it's a test of our skills and abilities as diligent researchers, that when we receive something like that, if we're able to identify that as fakery, then wow, these guys really know what they're doing.
Yeah, and that's just one portion. There are some other applications out there too. Like I used one just the other night with a photo that was sent to us, and it involved an image that I hadn't seen. It looked like a cowboy / sheriff with some dark glasses on.
On the tour.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. On that, what was it, up in Seattle?
Yes.
Yeah, the underground tour in Seattle. Mm-hmm. And there was this ominous dude standing in the background. Didn't look familiar like any of the other templates that you could overlay from these applications. So that's the first step. The second step is that you can actually look at what's called the EXIF information that's in each photograph. Basically what it is when you take a picture in a camera, there is a thumbprint of that specific brand of camera and that model that goes into the inside information of that pic. So if you send it to somebody else, it will retain that information, and they can tell what camera it was taken in.
That's amazing.
Now, this thumbprint also exists anytime that you open, edit, and then resave that digital photograph. It will then re-fingerprint it to whatever application you did that in. So people can tell that it was in, or that it was modified and saved again inside Photoshop or anything else.
So basically it's like a fingerprint to tell you if it's been doctored or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Now it's not 100% correct, because there are some cameras out there that have in-camera editing capabilities. That it's possible to edit a photograph, go back and insert it back into the camera, resave it in the camera, or even do some of the editing within the camera, but the tools inside the cameras are not as good, obviously, as using a desktop version of Photoshop. So it is possible to do that and then put it back into the camera, get that fingerprint back onto it, and then start distributing it as a original.
Wow,
so
someone
that is
would
possible.
really have to be out to fake some evidence to go through all of that.
Yeah. Well, one of the other ones that we saw, in fact, the ghost girl that we saw, it was purportedly taken from a, what do you call it? Hunting cameras.
Hunting camera, yeah, the motion hunting cameras that snap pictures of game or whatever on trails. Hunters use them to know where, they're supposed to hunt. Yeah,
and what they did was they took the picture with that, they put it into Photoshop or a phone app. They had to take a picture of it and insert it into their their phone, re-edit it, and go back and resave it from the hunting cam, which they did. And I don't know how they did that.
Did you check all those different fingerprint things when we analyzed that?
Well, that one no in particular, because people had already done it, and it showed that that the last thing that it was in supposedly was a hunting camera.
Oh.
So someone actually doctored the photo, then put it up next to one of those, and took a picture of it again.
Oh wow!
Yeah, just to get that fingerprint.
People got some spare time on their hands. Whoever these people are, they can come do some of my work for me.
Yeah, so me as a motivational speaker, we're coming out and, all right, can everybody's attention?
You're all going to die, motherfuckers.
You all suck. There's your motivation
There's
for the day.
There's no hope for any of you.
So suck it up, buttercup.
Losers.
Anyway. You see lots of these photographs floating around, and God, don't even want to bring up, orbs. That'll be.
Oh God.
We'll save that for a subtopic.
I can't even talk about orbs. I can't even.
All by itself, we'll talk about that on its own.
I get a twitch or something. I can't even. I hate oh my God.
But that falls under the unintentional category.
Yeah, it's not. Okay, I'm not even gonna go there.
Yeah.
That's another.
I mean that involves the psychology of certain individuals and.
Effing crazy people.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so let's go ahead and take a small break. Do what we need to do, and when we come back, folks, we are going to play the interview with Dale Kaczmarek of the Ghost Research Society. 4 decades of paranormal investigation and research experience. So come back for that.
Yay, I'm excited.
Did not sound very excited.
Want your next presence to be a beacon in the darkness. Looking to open your eyes and illuminate your next investigation. Visit Satsanga Paranormal for all your electromagnetic field generation, full broad narrow spectrum illumination, and hyper trigger proximity object needs. Manufacturer of the new SPARC electromagnetic quartz crystal hyper pump, as seen on PBS television. Type Satsanga Paranormal in any search engine. That's SATSANGA or SPRS at Facebook.
All right, and welcome back to SPARC After Dark. We are pleased to introduce on our inaugural show a world-class guest. This gentleman has been in paranormal investigation for 40 years. He's had hundreds of appearances on TV, radio, as well as publications. He's been on Sci-Fi, Discovery, the Travel Channel, Oprah, Coast to Coast with Art Bell, as well as Haunted Voices with Todd Bates. He's been in print on the Chicago Sun, LA Times, Wall Street, New York Times, hundreds of other shows, terrestrial radio, and publications. In addition to appearing in dozens of books by other authors, he's actually written 6 of his own, a field guide to spirit photography, a field guide to ghost hunting, and Illuminating the Darkness, the mystery of spook lights, or just to name a few. He's investigated Bobby Mackey's Houghton Mansion, Waverly Hills McPike Mansion, Lincoln Theater, Gettysburg Battlefield, just to name only a few of the few investigations that he's done. He's also the current president of the Ghost Research Society. He teaches courses on ghost hunting techniques at IMU, the International Metaphysical University. He also belongs to the American Association of Electronic Voice Phenomenon, the International Forteana Organization, and the Society for the Investigation of the Unexplained. Please welcome Dale Kaczmarek, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us, Dale.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. So please, Dale, tell us a little bit about what you're doing currently in the field.
Well, we've been very busy this year. We're doing a lot of investigations. We try to stay extremely busy. We try to do a lot of public investigations, but we're also the private homes and private businesses as well. This year alone, we've been to some places like Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. We've been out to investigate the USS North Carolina battleship. I have been involved with several conferences this year. I've still got a few more conferences coming up this year. In fact, I have one coming up this weekend in Rockford, the Chicago Ghost Convention the first week of October. So they keep me quite busy.
Yeah, and then you live out in the Windy City area, correct?
Yeah, I'm just the south side in a town called Oaklawn, which is about 18 miles or so from downtown Chicago.
Mm-hmm. And how is the para community out there in Illinois? Is it fairly strong? Is there a lot of community participation in paranormal studies out there?
Oh yes, there wasn't always. This wasn't always the case when I first started back in the mid 1970s. There were just. In fact, we were the first. I believe we were the first group that started back in 1977 here, and now it's just kind of sprung up all over the place. There are a lot of different paranormal groups, individual investigators, people running ghost tours, conventions going on all the time. So, yeah, Chicago, as any large metropolitan area, often tend to attract paranormal investigators, and Chicago has a rich history of ghost lore and a lot of haunted sites throughout not only the city itself, but throughout the south and southwest side and the entire metropolitan area.
Yeah, because I know you've written 2 books already regarding specific spots in the Windy City for people to check out. And I believe, I'm not mistaken, you're working on the 3rd?
Yes, I am. Windy City Ghost 1 and 2, and the 3rd one hopefully will be coming out sometime next year. Usually I work on my books usually in the late fall, early winter months when times are cold here in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I don't get a chance to go out and do a lot of investigating, so I kind of stay snug as a bug in a rug, so to speak, here in my basement and catch up on my research and writing, and hopefully be writing a couple of books for release in 2014, including one on Windy City Ghost, and another one I hope to complete on my 40 years as a ghost researcher, how the field has changed, how it was when I first started, the equipment, people's attitudes, and just their idealisms, from back from the 1970s right up to present. Kind of like a memoir book about myself and my investigations and society as general and how to approach ghost hunting.
And that would be a fantastic read, I think. There are very few, rare individuals that would be able to speak to how parapsychological investigation and paranormal research has evolved over the past 40 years. There's very few people that can speak to that, so I think that would be a very fascinating read. Definitely something that I would pick up, for sure.
I've seen just so much of it actually myself. I think the big turnaround personally, and it's going to sound a little corny actually, was when the advent of the movie Ghostbusters came out in 1984. I saw a lot of mind shifts at that point. Prior to that, I really believed it was people were kind of holding stories to themselves. It was still not fashionable, I guess, to talk about ghost stories or if you had a paranormal encounter, because you kind of looked at it being a quack, kind of a candidate for the men in the white coats, a nearby insane asylum, or just kooky, because people just didn't really talk about their ghost stories. When I first started, it was very hard to generate ghost stories. I found it very, very difficult to gather information back then. But all of a sudden, when Ghostbusters came up, it almost kind of gave, we know Ghostbusters was really kind of a satire on ghost hunting, obviously. We don't carry backpacks on our back that captures ghosts and they don't have all their kind of equipment. But it kind of gave the humorous side of ghosts, but also showed that ghosts aren't something to be afraid of all the time, too. And that people could actually talk to others about their ghost story without fear of ridicule and being laughed at. And I really saw a radical mind shift about that time period when people began coming out of the closet, so to speak, with their ghost stories.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray, both of them, are still to this day very actively involved in the American Society for Psychical Research to this very day. We know some individuals that know Bill Murray. He's still... of course, he plays into it as far as the whole Ghostbusters role, but it's still an active hobby of his. And Dan Aykroyd has been actively involved. In fact, he was the one that actually kind of proposed the whole idea to Harold Ramis about his hobby and his passion and how interesting it would be to have a satire based on parapsychological investigation and how it could be, kind of brought out of the shadows a little bit to people talk about it. But it's something that Dan takes very, very seriously, and a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, I actually had a chance to meet Dan Aykroyd in person a number of years ago when he was producing a television show called Way Out. Unfortunately, it never came to fruition. He actually shot, I think, 12 or 15 episodes, and I was going to be the pilot episode in that they flew me out to New York. I actually got a chance to meet him, got a picture with Dan Aykroyd, which is hanging on my wall today. Got to meet this neat old guy. And, after the show, I mean, he was really a really level-headed guy. I mean, he really takes ghost hunting very seriously. And a lot of people think he's just an actor. He's just a character in Ghostbusters. No, he really is. His father really is. In fact, he actually wrote a book. Peter Aykroyd actually wrote a book about ghost hunting, too. So, they are he's very, very serious about it, and just a very, very nice guy.
Yeah. Well, for yourself, Dale, what is that initially brought you and keeps you in this field? Something that still, to some degree, is considered, on the fringe of social and scientific acceptance. What really keeps you within parapsychological investigation?
Well, it's always that anticipation of getting something that's going to be, the holy grail. I mean, we have captured some really remarkable evidence, I believe, throughout my investigative career. I visited and investigated more than 4,000 locations. And in that time period, there have been, quite a few that we've obviously haven't gotten locations, but on many we have gotten very good EVPs, very good photographs, sometimes actually moving shadow figures, full-bodied apparitions actually captured on videotape. We have over 800 YouTube videos that are actually linked through our website right now as part of our evidence.
And which website is that? The Ghost Research Society?
Ghostresearch.org.
Okay, ghostresearch.org, everybody.
Mm-hmm. And it's really that anticipation of getting something more. With the equipment, and I've seen this happening. As I started out, there was literally no equipment to speak of.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I started out with a cassette tape recorder and a 35mm camera, and that was about it. I've seen equipment really just go through the roof, decade after decade, to what it is today. And now people actually specifically building equipment specifically designed for ghost hunting. Where in the past you kind of had to adapt, pieces of equipment for ghost busting or ghost hunting or ghost research.
Yeah. Well, of all the contemporary stuff that's come out,
you really couldn't make the breakthrough.
Yeah. Well, of all the contemporary tech that's come out recently, largely in the last decade, especially out of digital dowsing and paratechnologies, is there any particular technology that stands out to you as something that's promising that would really help bolster parapsychological research?
Yeah, it's the real-time devices. We can actually hold a conversation, in theory, with a ghost. I mean, in the past, when people would do EVP sessions, they would always, go in a location with a digital tape recorder, or before that with an open reel or cassette tape recorder. Ask a question, you leave some blank space. Ask a question, leave some blank space, and in that blank space, you were supposed to get an answer. Mm-hmm. You would listen to that maybe, a week later, a few days later. Some people later on would do these what they call burst EVP sessions and listen to them right on the spot. But that's really not my way of thinking of two-way communication with a ghost. These real-time EVP devices, these things like obelisks, ghost boxes, inductive probes, real-time EVP devices, I think that's where the breakthrough is coming, is where you can actually hold a conversation with a ghost, hear the response you're getting, build on the response, and actually continue the conversation.
Yeah, and they're making obviously leaps and bounds in some of those areas. I know some of them are hotly debated. There's obviously a pretty divided group when it comes to speaking about the spirit box or the obelisk, as far as what atmospheric conditions are utilized for the word libraries in those devices, and how are those mapped to the exact dictionary that's inside the devices, and why those specific conditions are equated with that with those specific phrases. So there's definitely a divided and hotly contended viewpoint on some of those.
That's one of the reasons we when we're using the obelisks in particular, we prefer really not to use the dictionary mode, which is actually the built-in mode. We prefer to use it in what's called phonetic mode.
Yes,
which actually allows the spirits, in theory, to form their own words, using a speech synthesizing device in there to put together the vowels and consonants to form words, and then form those words into sentences. Mm-hmm. We have had entire sentences come out in phonetic mode. In the dictionary mode, you can only have one word come out at a time. In the phonetic mode, you can have an entire sentence come out, and we have examples on our website of entire sentences coming out in phonetic mode. Very clear, very readable, nothing you have to read into.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, going kind of switching tracks when it comes to the actual investigation, and you have teams rolling up on a residence, and they're bringing their various gear and things that they choose to use on the investigation. Is there a common mistake or something that you feel that even seasoned teams, a mistake that they make when coming up on an investigation that they're not doing that could ensure some proper controls? Is there something that most teams make the mistake of doing?
Well, there are a lot of actually smaller mistakes that I actually see, and that's why I wrote the book on ghost hunting techniques, to kind of point these out. We network with a lot of other groups, and I love to network with other groups when our group goes out as well. If we go to another state, downstate Illinois, or to another further out, east or west coast or whatever, and sometimes, unfortunately, I do see other groups doing the same mistakes. One mistake that I see quite a lot is when people are doing EVP sessions, they're actually holding the digital recorder in their hand, which is actually a big no-no. Mm-hmm. There's so much noise that can be imparted simply by holding the device in your hand. that can actually be misinterpreted as a voice. Simply walking around with it can actually impart, wind to hit the microphone that can sound like something else. Even using devices such as the tri-field natural EM meter, which is a device that one of the better meters, better EMF meters out there, which doesn't pick up AC fields. People will actually use those in a handheld mode, and they're not meant to be used in a handheld mode because they will pick up a lot of false readings once you start swinging it around in the air.
Yeah.
And these are the kind of things I see kind of all the time, and I try to point out when I'm doing workshops or conferences or lectures, different presentations on ghost hunting, to try to educate the public and educate those up-and-coming teams of some of the mistakes they might be using.
Okay. Well, in regards to video or still photography, is there any current technology you think that it helps the most when it comes to still shots, or maybe even your thoughts on infrared or ultraviolet video?
Well, of course, when I first started out, we didn't have any of this. We just had black and white or color film, and we did have infrared film, which we used extensively, both Ektachrome, which is the color, the black and white was the high speed, more or less. We were able to use Tri-X film, which is very sensitive to the UV side of the spectrum. And night shot cameras didn't come out until many, many years later. So we were basically confined to using 35 millimeters. Of course, when the digital technology came out, that's when you got that instant picture. And something which really kind of helped, teams and ghost hunting, ghost research teams, is that instant picture. Because in the past, when you're snapping pictures with 35 millimeter film, you don't know if you got anything until a week later, a few days later when you develop that film. You don't know if you're even got anything at all, if you're on the right track. Here, when you're snapping with digital, you can actually see instantly. If you got something, you can try some more shots here. Then you can employ your 35 millimeter because your digital showing you there's maybe something there. You can then try your Sony night shot, your full spectrum cameras, and we have had some success using full spectrum cameras, UV cameras, and the night shot cameras, which a lot of people mistake for infrared cameras. They're really more what's called near infrared.
And then you're talking about somewhere around the that would be 840, as opposed to like 950, which is true infrared, correct?
Exactly, right, in nanometers.
Yeah. Well, since you do, arguably possess one of the largest, if not the largest, collection of spirit photography in the world, do you notice a difference between the huge digital revolution and more of the analog equipment from prior decades as far as viability of evidence?
That's where you come into unfortunately, a lot of people trying to fake stuff here when you get into the digital technology, when you get into using Photoshop and so forth. Not that it wasn't something that couldn't happen also in a 35 millimeter technology, but however, in the 35 millimeter technology, you have a physical negative to examine. So you can then go back and then see if that image shows up in the negative, because you can always say, if you're trying to fix something in 35 millimeter, you would take the 35 millimeter print, scan it in, and then use Photoshop to put something in. Well, it's only going to show up on the print. It's not going to show up on the negative.
Yeah, it's doable.
Thing to show. Where in digital, you don't have that.
Yeah.
And that's where, unfortunately, a lot of these, even now, when I get quite a bit now, it's iPhone applications. People send ghost cameras and capture images of really fake images that people send me. They claim that these are true images, and even though I can point out the exact application and show them a screenshot. They'll still come back to me and say, "No, it's the real deal."
At least, if you're going to try and fake something, at least, take some effort and actually, use some other shot that you can't just grab out of a template off of an Android application, Spend some, give me a challenge. Give me a challenge here.
Exactly.
Is there any specifically out of digital dowsing or paratechnologies that's something that you've been excited about?
Yeah, there are some technologies that have really piqued my interest, and some of the devices that have come out here recently, including the thermal flashlight, is kind of nice. What's called a thermal sound device, which works in the same principle as that. It actually pings the area using ultrasonic frequency, almost like a sonar from a submarine. And actually will display if there's something moving in the environment that you can't see with the naked eye, because it's actually coming back, giving you an echolocation of this invisible form, and at the same time it's pinging it with this sonar or this ultrasound. It's also pinging it with a thermal reading, so you can actually tell if the whatever it is hot, cold, in between. It gives you an instant temperature reading too, and that's really kind of neat.
That's kind of nice. So it's combined the two together, infrasound as well as the thermal infrared reading, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's right. So it's a little bit more supportive evidence because you're utilizing two specific different technologies to measure one phenomena happening.
Right. And another thing we've actually kind of adapted that has actually generated some interest here too is an ordinary. It's called a back detector. It actually picks up infrasound, which is low frequency sound. Something that bats actually generate. Now bats actually generate this sound and ping it out so they can navigate in total darkness. If there's the absence of these animals around and you're picking up infrasound, something that is a sound below our frequency, you might be experiencing EVPs. You might be experiencing, voices that we can't hear. So we use this device in conjunction when we're doing EVP sessions to see if this device begins to pick up infrasound in conjunction with voices we may or may not pick up during our EVP sessions.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people kind of hard and fast say that, EVPs are, to really technically be considered an EVP, it's anything below 300 hertz. And I know that a lot of people have sent us evidence here over at SPARC for review, because we do some review for TAPS, as well as a few other teams as well, just because one of our specialties is audio and EVP analysis. And we get a lot of stuff from teams that have captured something that does sound like an anomaly in the environment. It doesn't have the standard, or it doesn't have the reverb impulses that maybe some of the investigator voices have, but it's above the 300 hertz line. In fact, it could be even well above or actually within the standard human vocal range. What's your opinion on quote unquote EVPs that are not below the 300 hertz mark or that are above, that might be in the standard vocal human range? Is that a possibility?
I have not actually picked any up in that range, to tell you the truth. So I really can't comment on it. I know if I'm not mistaken, I believe the human range is between 20 hertz and 20,000 hertz.
Yeah, roughly. I think mine's a little bit lower, being an ex-musician. I think mine probably caps out at maybe quite a bit lower than that on the high end.
Sure. But, I mean, not to say, unfortunately, not to say one way or the other that EVP doesn't have to necessarily be at the lower range of human sound. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that we That's for an ideal human. That's maybe for an 18 or 20-year-old human who has the entire capacities of hearing. As you grow older, you might lose a little bit of your hearing, and you might not pick up the entire range of the hertz. So you might not hear that EVP that may be in that 300 hertz range.
Yeah, I know a lot of recent work by, I'm not sure if you're familiar with David Roundtree.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, he's done a lot of work in the EVP EMF origination field and has some very compelling evidence to support a hypothesis that EVPs, that although we've always kind of understood that they're not really heard in the environment, other than disembodied voices, which is something completely different, that EVP really originates more from electromagnetic forces that imprints into digital or analog, regardless, and that because it comes from EMF, it doesn't really matter really what the frequency is that it appears on. It's from obviously from a phenomenon that we're not able to detect with, through pressurized sound waves.
And I would totally agree with that, because if you go back to what the very early EVPers, and I mean early EVPers like Professor Hans Bender, Friedrich Jurgensen, Konstantin Laveve, very early EVPers, when they were using these very bulky, open, reel-to-reel tape recorders, obviously they were not hearing the sounds as they were being recorded. In fact, Friedrich Jurgensen was the guy that first discovered EVP as he was recording bird sounds, and he later got these in the background somehow, and he did not hear these. The idea being that they're somehow bypassing the physical microphone, because obviously, or maybe they're not bypassing the physical microphone. There's theories on that, and maybe directly imprinting itself on the electromagnetic tape. And again, if they have something to do with EMF, and you got magnetic recording tape, there's your connection.
Which might account for a lot of the large distortions and just relatively poor quality that we have in most, EVP capture. I know that there's some Class A stuff out there, and, it's arguable on what the origination of that EVP is, but the ones that are clear that weren't heard in the environment at the time by any of the investigators present. I know that there are definitely some people that will say that it was not heard, that and it's so clear that it has to be some other origination besides pressurized sound waves, and EMF tends to be probably a pretty good answer. And I know we could probably back that up with other measurements and corroborative technology at the time. And sometimes we get that, but it's not always the case.
And this is one reason too that some of the older devices still work better in capturing EVPs than maybe some digital recorders do. For instance, one of my camcorders, I refuse to go into a hard drive camera or something like that. I still use the tape cameras, the high 8s and the regular 8 cameras, the taped cameras, and actually have a cassette that go, because again, you're using magnetic recording tape. And there have been many times that we've actually caught EVPs on the audio track of videotapes.
I remember as a kid, I used to work with 8mm film, which was silent, but also like Super 8 later, and it's interesting to me how there are millions and millions of hours of audio and videotape out there for various reasons, whether it be studio recordings, whether it be through professional film. But it's interesting. We seem to get more EVP evidence from a concerted effort than we do from just accidental. Do you have any feelings about that?
Yeah, I believe so, and that again, I believe it has something to do with perhaps the energies that is being expelled by the researchers themselves, because we are our own field of energy. Our body actually produces measurable energy that can be measured, and I believe that even by asking the question and throwing out the sound waves, they can in some way use that as a amplitude to come back and put an EVP on a tape. I truly believe that, we've done a lot of experiments where we have static tape recorders, digital, and in the past, cassette, in locations, and really have already gotten nothing or just very little. But at the same time, when we go to that same location and we're doing it and we're conducting a session, we seem to get more.
Yeah. And I think some of the quantum mechanics revelations that have come out just in the past 15 years, people have really been making the tie between the connection between ourselves and our energy and our non-locality, and some of the energies that we're really trying to discover that are all around us, and probably how we're not as separate as we've believed since the age of enlightenment. Enlightenment, quote unquote, I should say. Well, what are your feelings on non-human forces and their potential differences in our ability to capture evidence of their existence, whether it be digital or analog media? Do you think there's any difference?
Explain what you mean by non-human forces.
Well, are you talking about ghosts, or are you talking about something beyond ghosts? Well, I know ghost is kind of a loaded word, and it means a lot of different things to different people. But I guess I'm more specifically addressing, I guess more from a spiritual standpoint, what some people might call demonic, or even some people say, quote unquote, shadow people are not are non-human forces, that they have nothing to do with bodily survival of mortals, and has nothing to do with with consciousness theory whatsoever. It comes from either they're extra dimensional beings, or in a more spiritual sense, they're more demonic or biblical in nature.
Right, or as John Keel would say, ultra-dimensionals.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. In our work, I've only maybe have picked up a handful of what I may believe to be, something beyond maybe a surviving personality of a once living person. So there are, and this goes all the way, this whole idea goes all the way back, even beyond me, to other researchers that have actually picked up, what they believe to be, demonic sounds, demonic voices, pops, whistles, squeaks, and so forth on their, during their EVP sessions that they, in the past, would have discarded. And by using now the technology of, Audacity, or Adobe Audition, and great sound programs like that, you can actually take those little pops, whistles, and little tidbit recorded sound bites and stretch them, elongate them, and in many cases they have actually came out to be words that were being said so very fastly, so very quickly. Fastly is not a word, I guess. Quickly is that they were compressed, and all we heard was a pop, a whistle, or a little noise on the tape. This has happened several times to us, even when we were doing an experimental Ouija board session in the Lincoln Theater. We were hearing in real time a fluttering sound, like fluttering the wings, like that. And it was a couple of people had suggested this was the planchette making the noise. I said, well, the planchette doesn't make any noise. It's got foam, it's got felt on the bottom, and it moves very quietly along the Ouija board. And we heard this a couple times. And as I went back and I played with the pitch, stretching it, doing everything to it, it actually came out as words.
Wow.
And not so nice words either. We have gotten a lot of explicatives that have come through. And I don't believe all of these are being said by people that once walked the earth, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe these are some things that are a little bit more darker, or maybe a bit more sinister.
Yes, yeah. And so in that light, do you think provocation, sometimes that you see used, especially in some of the paratainment shows, do you think that that's a wise approach to paranormal investigation?
Well, I always say you get what you ask for. I mean, if you're going out there and you're going to provoke at a well-known spot that's got a lot of negativity in the past, where people have had picked up negativity, where there have been untimely deaths, there have been murder, there have been even satanic worship, things of this nature, you're going to get that back when you provoke. We prefer not to provoke because we get I believe we get plenty of evidence without provoking.
Mm-hmm.
We may try to elicit a response in some way, but, we don't have to yell or scream at somebody to get a response. And, the idea, too, if you think of it this way, if you were a ghost or a spirit, and somebody came into your abode and started screaming and yelling at you, how likely would it be for you to want to communicate with somebody like that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, unless you were trying to make good, good TV.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
so provocation sometimes can be a little dangerous, especially where you do it. And I think it's just great for these reality TV programs, which really kind of lead the public maybe down the wrong path.
Yeah. Well, do you utilize psychics or sensitives on your team?
We do on occasion. If we're going into, say, a haunted business or a client's private home, during the initial investigation, no. Because normally we're going in as a fact-finding mission to find out, number one, is there really something going on? Because when people respond or call me or email me or send me a letter or whatever the case may be, how they contact me, people often jump to the conclusion that what they have is automatically a ghost. A lot of people do. I'm not going to say every person, but a lot of people do, without trying to either debunk their ghost or look for a natural explanation. And that's what we try to do. I am a believer that these things do exist, otherwise I wouldn't have been in the field this long. But I also am a bit of a skeptic, too, because I have to be skeptical. I have to have a skeptical approach when I go into these investigations because, first of all, I wasn't there when these people were having the experience, so I'm not going to call them liars, but they may have misinterpreted something that is perfectly natural. So when we go there, we try to find out there's a natural explanation, and then sometimes the people that call us in simply just want reassurance that they're not going crazy, or just find out what's going on, and then sometimes they'll say, well, we believe it's, Aunt Claire or Uncle Charlie, and if that's the case, just leave them here. We don't want, that person to leave. So sometimes they don't even want a psychic. Other times, they're very, very terrified at what's going on. And at the conclusion of our investigation, they want whatever is there to be eliminated or to be moved out or, shown the door.
Yeah.
And that's where a psychic may come into play. We have worked with psychics in the past in that avenue.
And you have seen some measured success as far as, what they term, clearing or a blessing of a residence.
Yeah, but the psychics that I have worked with are how can I say it? They're kind of old-fashioned psychic. Because remember, I started in the field way back in the 1970s. Mm-hmm. My first investigation in a private home was in 1982, and we didn't go into an area to do any rituals. We didn't do any smudging. I mean, smudging was really unheard of back then. If it was, I never heard of it. Okay.
Yeah. I think it was. I think back then it was maybe relegated to witchcraft, whereas now it's a little more open, and people realize that there are different, factions within, practices besides, the Judeo-Christian belief that there is Wiccan, there is shamanism, there's other branches besides just satanic worship.
Right. I mean, the psychics that I had worked with would try to go in. They would try to communicate either through their gifts, whether they be clairaudient, they'd be clairvoyant, they'd be telepathic, or whatever the case may be, and try to communicate with the ghosts, identify the ghosts, and then through either their spirit guides or whatever, however they did it, try to show them the way out. Try to basically convince them that they are dead, because that's the often repeated scenario is that ghosts don't realize that they have died, because most ghosts have died that are hanging around are usually due to an untimely death. Mm-hmm. And that scenario comes into play quite a bit.
Yeah, the traditional crisis apparition or I don't know, what's the correct terminology? I guess you could say an intelligent haunting.
Right.
Yeah. Well, if you could really put your finger on something that maybe is currently missing out of the investigative community, the paranormal investigative community, that kind of has been holding us back from advancing to the next stage. Because I've been studying parapsychology for a good part of 30 years. I've always been fascinated in it since I was a kid. And it wasn't until about the mid-'80s I remember picking up a copy of Lloyd Arbuck's ESP Hauntings and Poltergeists. And it basically formalized all the fascinations of the field that I had. I did not realize that there were actual individuals that were out in the field that were taking this phenomena seriously and trying to apply scientific methodology to it. But it seems like it really hasn't, other than technology that's kind of aided us a little bit in the field, it seems like, especially social acceptance-wise and scientifically, the scientific community, we really haven't made too many advances. Is there something, do you think, that's maybe holding us back from making any large strides in the field?
Well, I think one of the major reasons why things aren't moving along as quickly as they should be, in my personal opinion, is just the teamwork and unity among everybody. Mm-hmm. There's really too much paranormal drama.
Yeah.
There are too many teams that say that this is mine, this is my evidence, nobody can touch it. This is my location, nobody can touch it. There's too much of that going around still. I think we're basically all in here for the same reason. We're all in here to try to come up with some sort of conclusion, some sort of set some sort of theory or hypothesis, and then go about proving that hypothesis through research, investigations, case studies, and so forth. And if we all put our heads together, basically work together, I think we would make better strides, because there are a lot of very bright individuals and bright people and bright groups out there. I've worked with a number of them, and I know there's a number to work with, and there are so many out there today. And there are, of course, a lot of fly-by-night ones there, too.
Yeah.
But I think that is what's really holding back, this paranormal community from making the leaps and bounds that it needs to. If there were more unity, more teamwork, more sharing of knowledge, more sharing of information, I think we would make better strides.
And that's one of the reasons that we started our group, is we saw such a huge void in the collaboration efforts of the teams. I mean, we have so many boots on the ground out there that are doing the work, but so little collaboration between all these teams. We I'm not trying to plug SPARC or anything, but we put together a database where teams can actually input the atmospheric and conditional data present at the time that they experienced some paranormal activity. And I guess the database is kind of twofold. One is we're trying to compile all this data to see if there are trends and patterns within paranormal phenomena and why it occurs and when, where, and how it exists. But also at the same time to kind of trick all of the paranormal teams into working and collaborating together without them realizing it. Because it seems like whenever they try and get together, like you're saying, there's territorial issues, there's philosophical differences that they can't get past and keep them from working together. And I know the paratainment rise has kind of created some of these rifts a little bit because people are skeptical about different teams' motives and such, and it definitely makes it difficult for sure.
Yeah, there may even be protocol issues between the way different teams approach the paranormal. I've always, I kind of suggest in my book, it's not a rock solid suggestion, but I kind of suggest in my book that, if you're going to start a team, you should decide what kind of a team you want. Is it going to be more scientifically based, or is it going to be more psychically based? I mean, is it going to be coming from the intuitive side, from the psychic side, the mediumship side, or more of the scientific, the equipment side? The two can work together, but I think in our case, we always try to stay more scientific because the other way, even though we do work with psychics have provided us great information, it's almost impossible to prove that stuff because it's something that comes from the mind. Unless you can absolutely guarantee, the skeptic that this person has never been here before, he or she has had no prior knowledge of anything. Blindfold that person, do all these kind of safeguards. Where if you go in there basically and you're picking up stuff with your equipment and your cameras, your tape recorders, your camcorders, that's stuff that you can say, okay, we got generated information and here it is. Here's for everybody to view. Something that a psychic produces is something that they produce from their own mind. Yeah. They're picking up their feelings, their impressions, and so forth.
And I think we're going to have,
you can work together, though.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some obstacles when it comes to, what they're coining as, para-unity. And everybody likes to throw out the term para-unity. But when they really start looking at the nuts and bolts of what it means and how different teams have different motivations, 'cause I know SPARC is a little more, like you were saying, we're a little more scientifically based. And that in and of itself doesn't mean that we're true skeptics. We're actually skeptical believers, but there are definitely teams that just because they hear that we're more scientifically based and a little more research oriented, automatically there's a defensive wall that goes up. And so it really made us kind of look at the motivations and why we have these huge obstacles in the para-unity area of paranormal research. And we ran into a lot of contention with groups who did not like, let's say the database, for example. Just the sheer fact that we were trying to quantify paranormal activity and trying to find trends and patterns, they looked at it as, the best way I can describe it is they looked at it as an attempt to demystify a hobby that they have. And they didn't want to be told that going out and running around graveyards with a voice recorder and not really looking more beyond just the scare factor, they found that very threatening. So there's a large part, a huge part of the community out there that really that's what they're in it for, which is, unfortunate. And some of us that are trying to advance the field, we run up against that opposition quite often. And I think paratainment has kind of increased that level of awareness. As much as we've gotten a lot of smart and passionate individuals into the field because of paratainment, which is, great that we've gotten the attention. It's also brought in a lot of bad habits, I feel, and a lot of bad motivations, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I will never knock. I mean, these paranormal shows, there have never been more paranormal shows ever than there have been in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally, I can't keep track of them all. I mean, they're on, at the same time on different channels, 3 or 4 different channels.
Yeah.
They do bring a lot of people to the field, which is great. But as you said, some of the people that are in there, maybe are not doing things exactly right. People do pick up bad habits from them.
Yeah.
And maybe their expectation is also too high because on the TV shows, they seem like no matter where they go, they always get evidence.
Yeah.
They get evidence every place they go, or they always get scratched or pushed. And that's the expectation that perhaps people have when they go to sites. And that's not reality. It's reality. At best, you might get something. Best, you might not get anything. You might look through 5, 6, 10, 14 hours of videotape and get nothing.
Yeah.
And you got to remember, this is, like I put in my book, it's just a television program.
Yeah, and we like to draw the analogy a lot over here at SPARC that it's a lot like archaeology at the turn of the century. There's some people that jump into it because they're expecting boulders and Nazis, and they're surprised when suddenly they're having to sit down in a ditch for 2 months scrubbing out a hip bone out of a hillside with a toothbrush, and the not so glamorous side, and I think it's a pretty good comparison, really.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, Dale, is there just on a lighter note, is there a certain ghost movie that's your favorite? I know each of us have our own here at SPARC, and some of them cheesy, some of them not so cheesy. Is there something that that spoke to you over all the years?
Well, I mean, there's several actually that that I have really enjoyed. One of my favorites growing up is the original 13 Ghosts.
Yes.
Not the remake.
Yeah.
The original 13 Ghosts, because I actually saw it in a movie theater with 3D glasses.
Oh wow!
On the ghost, you had to put the glasses on.
Yeah.
And that was kind of always one of my favorites. Of course, the Legend of Hell House, and of course, the first Poltergeist movie, I think, was one of my favorites as well.
Yeah, Spielberg was fantastic on that, wasn't he?
But, then when you start going to Poltergeist 2, Poltergeist 3, and kind of stretching it a little bit. But, there were some great movies that came up. And of course, there were some great paranormal shows throughout the years, like, Sightings and Unsolved Mysteries and so forth. Before some of these reality shows actually came on the air, that didn't really have to, the researchers, investigators didn't have to really produce any evidence. It was just enough that they were there, they did an investigation, if they came up with something great, but if they didn't, no big deal.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think I was always a sucker for X-Files myself, too, even though not really so much a ufologist, but just the subject matter, that really kind of whetted the palate, and the craving for us paranormal geeks for quite a few years, which was kind of nice. You don't see it too often that's done well. Yeah.
Exactly.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Dale. I appreciate you coming on the show. We're honored to have your presence. We really appreciate all of the wide breadth of knowledge that you have and all your contributions to the field. Thank you so much for coming on SPARC After Dark, and we'd love to hear from you in the future.
My pleasure. Great to be on the show, and thank you for inviting me. And hope everybody out there, gained a little bit from what I said out there. Hope I gave them a little bit to at least think about some theories and conjectures and some protocols and so forth.
Yes, yeah, definitely a rare perspective that we don't hear enough about. So thank you so much for your perspective and your professional experience, Dale. Very much so.
Thank you.
Great. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye-bye. Okay, let's talk about some unintentional stuff. Okay.
Sorry.
That was completely unintentional.
Okay.
Chainsaw for motorboat and
All right. I'm gonna load up farts on the samples here. Oh my god.
that's gross.
Okay.
That would fall under the contamination category.
Yeah, I think so too.
Restricted air.
And have you ever farted on the investigation?
I have.
Really? Like
I absolutely have.
during like an EVP session?
Yes, and we've actually picked it up on EVP, and I've been like, I have no idea what that is. I've totally lied.
Denied? You denied it?
Of course.
Okay, so it wasn't like obvious during the EVP?
No, I'm going to be like, that was me. No, I don't think so.
Tag, I farted.
No,
That wasn't a
absolutely
demonic
not.
growl.
No,
That
I'm
was
sorry.
just air
If that
escaping from my
gets
anus.
put in as paranormal evidence, so be it. Whatever. That's a freebie.
What the hell was that?
So, as far as the intentional stuff goes, I think we come across this stuff probably pretty rarely, where you have a team member, maybe more of a client, that's trying to, shove a photo in your face that they've obviously doctored, or they're more often than not, they're seeing stuff in it that is just not there. That's 95% of the time, is people seeing stuff that is just not there. I mean, we see it in our groups, in Google Plus and Facebook. People will send us stuff, and it's like, oh, I see a lady standing in a garden, or I see I see a face in a window. That's most of it, and you're looking and it's like reflections of such and such. It's the curtain, it's the way the branches are, whatever.
Are you talking about like when people see like Elvis Presley in their eggs?
Exactly.
On their toast.
Like Matrix.
Cherry on their
So
toast.
pareidolia.
Jesus.
Matrixing at its best. They're, my dad used to say, if you sweep, you'll find dirt. So if you're going to be looking for something and you're wanting to see it, you're sure as hell going to see it there, whether it be Jesus Christ in a piece of toast, or the Virgin Mary up on some bank glass window
In the clouds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
it's not always on purpose too. You have the people who are trying to get a rise out of somebody for their own popularity or something like that. But probably most of the time, it's people don't necessarily realize the potential harm that they're doing by trying so hard to make something there because they want it to be.
Yeah.
Investigators do it too.
Yeah, because our motivation, some of us are so passionate about the field.
They want to keep it going at all costs.
Yeah, and they really are. I think I think they're pulling a Karen Carpenter. I think they're literally seeing what they want to see, despite the evidence, contrary to the fact that they are actually seeing what they want to see. Yeah. And because it supports, it's that what do they call it? The self-confirming evidence.
Yeah. If you investigate a place that's been previously investigated that has at least somewhat of a history of paranormal activity going on there, you investigate that place and you come up with nothing. I think any of us is going to feel maybe like we failed a little bit. Even if you're a skeptic, anybody wants to go in and find something.
Yeah.
There's people out there that maybe take it a step too far and lose the grasp of exactly the importance of just sticking with what you find. If you don't find anything, it doesn't mean you fail. It doesn't mean that you're not a good investigator. Maybe there's some things that you couldn't learn from that investigation, but people want to have something to show to other people that they also had success.
Well, I think this is a problem with new teams too. They go in and they do an investigation. They gather their evidence in quotations, and then they go to reveal it to their client, and they don't want to come up empty-handed. So they're going to try to insert whatever they can in there to show that client that yes, we are legitimate investigators, and yes, we can capture these things, and here's what we found. When maybe there's not necessarily anything there, it wasn't debunked properly. It happens all the time.
Yeah, and I think teams and investigators need to find a little bit more self-worth in the scientific methodology. I know that sounds geeky, but the other avenue is manufacturing evidence just to bolster their own lack of confidence in what they're doing. That's not why we're out there, and it does the client a total disservice.
It does the field a total disservice.
Yeah.
Which is why maybe it's stalled for so freaking long now, because of the constant manufacturing, whether it be intentional or unintentional, that we are viewed as, nutcases. If we show these ridiculous pictures, like most of them that I see in the groups and the forums of like, oh, look at the picture I caught of a ghost. Most people are going to look at you like you're a complete nutball. You're seeing what you want to see, and now their opinion of parapsychology has now been tainted for every single piece of evidence beyond that, whether it's legitimate or not. And we got to stop doing that. It doesn't mean you have to be a total naysayer on everything, but you have to approach every piece of evidence as a skeptical believer, I think, because to be a responsible researcher, you have to be open to all possibilities, including the likely possibility that what you're looking at is not evidence of paranormal activity.
99.9% probably not.
Right. Any scientific field that is established as a real scientific field, when they do, when they have their theories or their hypotheses and they do experiments on things, they fail. And they're not making up stuff. Oh, this actually worked. There's this and this. For us, this field to be taken as a legitimate scientific field by all the people who aren't believers, we have to do exactly the same thing as any other scientist in other fields would do. Is you try something out. If it doesn't work, you eliminate that from the list. Which means if you go on an investigation, you don't find something, that's how it goes. That validates the fact that there's not always something going on, and that's easier for non-believers to swallow. They can, okay, this person's not crazy. They don't think every single thing they run into is paranormal. They've got some brains to them. They're not just jumping the gun on everything.
Yeah. It's not just about going in there and finding something or not finding something. It's going in there and actually knowing what you should be looking for. And most people aren't able to do that because they have not put the research or the effort into, figuring out, what they should be searching for before they go on to an investigation. I mean, here at SPARC, we're primarily research-based. I mean, we read books, we read articles, we go into communities. We're constantly, searching and reading and studying and all of this. So when we go into an investigation, we catch something, we have something to fall back on. Most teams don't do that. They go in there, they catch something, they don't know what they're looking at, and they're trying to cram, make $1 out of a nickel's worth of knowledge. They don't, and then they present that as evidence, but they have no idea what they're talking about.
No.
Most of the time, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Agreed. And it comes back to that, that they're the thrill-seeking groups. We're not going to point fingers, but I think if groups are really honest with themselves and they looked at their methods, it will shine a light on their motivation. And I think more teams really need to do that. And I'm not saying they need to step out of the way. No, for the sake of the clients, for the sake of the field, they really need to look at how they're approaching their investigative practices.
I don't think you can be an investigator and not be a researcher and have it work. I think you have to be both. Mm-hmm. You have to know what you're investigating and really know. I
mean, you're always going to have clients that are needy, that they're trying to push evidence in your face to try and bolster their personal views. You're going to have unstable clients as well. You're going to have people that have a really bad cocktail of prescription medications or non-prescription medications, if you're lucky. Or just people who are just gullible. Mm-hmm. They watch the shows. Yeah. And that's it.
Attention seekers. I've been on a team, with many attention seekers where they, everything that happens is a paranormal occurrence and it happened directly to them, and this is how they're going to present it. And I've had to sit through countless reveals, shaking my head, like I cannot believe we are telling another person that we captured this and that this is evidence of the paranormal. I mean, it's just ridiculous what people will actually sit down and present to someone in a professional way as paranormal evidence is nothing. I mean, it's dust or a bug or, you know, someone scraped their foot across the floor. I mean, it's crazy the stuff that, you know, people will say is scientifically proven to be unexplainable.
Well, you know, I think also the kind of a caveat into that would be on the team's part, the overprocessing, especially when it comes to EVP evidence. It is so easy with the right software to hone in on such a granular level that you will, with enough overprocessing, you will hear just about anything in there. And I will tell people that anything beyond raising the volume, possibly slowing it down to half speed at the most, and maybe a couple levels of noise reduction at the most. If you need to do any more than that, you start screwing with the EQ. You're slowing it down to 200% of the speed or speeding it up and doing all these things just to find something. You're looking too hard.
You're creating something that's not there at that point.
And you can take a simple swipe of corduroy and suddenly you're turning it into Satan. You know, it will happen. You know, and if you process it enough, I'll tell you, I can get Satan just about out of anything.
Yeah.
And people have gotten it out of a backwards a hi-hat. You know, just ask Ozzy Osbourne.
That Beatles record.
People go into court over it. Yeah, exactly.
You
know,
backwards and what?
Oh, that's another one. You play stuff backwards.
I tried that, and all I did was ruin my record.
Every other word is Satan.
Yeah. Well, and that's playing it backwards. That's a big debate. I mean, that's actually, I wouldn't necessarily say that's common practice, would you? But that still goes on quite a bit. That's a tactic people use, not necessarily intentionally trying to come up, there's nothing here, but let's...
Well, Christ, anything's going to sound creepy when you play it backwards.
Well, yeah. But, I mean, I hear about that happening quite a bit. For some people, it almost seems like common practice. You know, there's ideas out there that playing it backwards, that spirits, that could be one possible way that it's recorded onto something where how they speak. And so you don't hear anything, you play it backwards. Well, we listen to it forwards the normal way, but maybe there's something we don't understand with the spirit world. So let's play it backwards and just make sure that there's nothing there.
Because ghosts rock it in reverse.
For sure.
Natus. Natus.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Yes, that would be it. Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God.
But that's another thing too, whether you're slowing it down more than half speed or just having to really like EQ it way more than how it was naturally recorded, or playing it backwards. Even if there's something that is interesting there, you show that to somebody. You know, what if they ask you, you know, how did you get this? As soon as you start explaining all the procedures that you had to take to make that sound come out,
you're going to lose them.
Yeah, I mean, even if they buy it, you're giving them false hope, basically, especially if they want something to be there, or false fear that something's actually there, and you're just trying to pull something. Well, here, let
me play some EVP from our last investigation, and I'll tell people exactly what we did.
Do it.
So what you're about to hear is some real EVP evidence from an investigation we had just a matter of weeks ago. It's repeated a few times over, and I'll tell you exactly what processing was involved. The first loop around is absolutely no processing whatsoever. You may not be able to hear it. You know, you might want to crank it up. Who cares? But go ahead. But it is audible. The second and third time around is, I believe, with just with the gain raised up a little bit, just volume. The third is denoised and with more volume. So no other processing than just taking away the noise and raising the volume. Okay, here we go.
Or anybody else who happens to be in this house. Or anybody else who happens to be in this house. Or anybody else who happens to be in this house. Or anybody else who happens to be in this house.
Now there's some really interesting elements to that EVP. being an audio file for many years, one of the things that stood out was the underwater effect that was there to begin with. In addition, at the end of the voice, if anybody was able to hear it, there was actually a second voice of much lower pitch underneath that sort of female voice going on. Now, I would still classify it as a Class B EVP because it really wasn't that loud to begin with.
Right.
And you can't really understand or make out, the multi-word sentence that's there.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
remember
interesting.
listening to this over and over.
Yeah, and that's another thing. If you listen to it too much, you will start to hear
You
just about
will.
anything.
You'll
Yeah.
hear. You want to hear something.
It's like, why is that
and
ghost-
not only that, but there's the audio matrix, where your brain is trying to piece together what you think you're hearing into something that it recognizes. And if you listen to something repeatedly, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And
best to listen to it one or two times and hand it off to another investigator. Have them listen one or two times, hand it off to another investigator, instead of listening to it repeatedly yourself, because you will find all sorts of things that aren't there.
yeah, and one thing I hate about the paratainment shows is like, oh my God, did you just hear that? And they give you a nice little blurb at the bottom so you know exactly what it is before you get a chance to hear it, or as you're listening to it, it's like, oh my God, that sounds just like that. Now,
That's suggestion.
I implore people, because I do watch some of the paratainment shows. I do, just to kind of see what's going on. And every single time when they go to use the spirit box, because you can see them lining it up, and they're ready to play the EVP, or they're taking their hand off of the spirit box so they can get a response, I always turn my head every single time, and I just listen. I close my eyes, and I just listen to what the words are that are about to come out. And then I might look and say, I mean, they always blow it. They say, oh my God, did you hear that? It's always like Aaron, like, oh my God, and they're freaking out over it. And they tell you, they plant the words before you really get a chance. And which is unfortunate, but it's a TV show.
It's ratings.
You got to go along with it. But the best thing to do is really turn your head. You can see it coming a million miles away. Turn your head, close your eyes, and wait for it and see what you hear before anybody else in the room reacts.
And Cameron, it really doesn't really matter when you're watching those shows if you turn your head or not, because by the time we see those shows, it's already been processed and altered so many times before they even put it on the air that there's really it's whatever.
Yeah.
It's entertainment. That's what it's there for.
That's a segue.
And welcome back to
There you go. On to anal ring toss.
Anal ring toss.
Hi, this is Marty Sharp from KZY.
Oh God.
She loves my radio voice.
No, I don't. It's
So much.
It's the root of all my nightmares. That's why I hated you in the very beginning. This is how he used to talk all the time.
Man, you are one pathetic loser.
So great. Every time. Never gets old.
So basically, people, I'm the big cheese of this team, all right? And now I get to be made fun of because I'm the only girl.
Hey, I wasn't making fun of your hygiene.
Yeah. Oh.
I was going to say something very
I'm going
similar to that.
kill these. You don't even know
Gotta be quick
what's going to
around here.
happen when this is done.
Cranberry juice. Do it.
Oh.
Whoa.
When do I get to make fun of you? When do I get to make fun of you?
Anytime.
Come
Bring
on.
it on.
Fucking redheaded bastards.
3, 2, 1.
Gingers.
Enough said.
What the hell is that? Exactly.
That's all you got?
Yeah, well, that's enough. Freaking ginger.
This is really hard to interface, dude. I gotta really shift around. I'm gonna have to get this up on my keyboard or something like that to really have my fingertips.
Don't say fingertips.
Yummy.
Stop. Stop.
Yeah.
Okay, you sound like Smeagol.
My precious. Oh, that's awesome. Well done.
That's how I feel when I get a really good Class A EVP. Exactly how I feel. Like I need to hide it from everyone. I know anything by EVP.
Oh, man. I like that.
Wow, I bet you he's just fantastic in the bedroom with that.
I got a whole bunch of voices.
Oh, dear.
Oh, goodness. Goodness gracious.
What was the other one that you had me do the other day that you really liked?
It was the Bobby.
No, there's something else. Oh, no, you hate it. I'm sorry, my Goofy impression.
Oh.
Oh, it's awful.
Goofy's always good.
Is that awful?
Let's do it.
No, it's awfully good.
Do it.
Okay, well, let's hear. It's good when I do like a conversation, like I'm into. But I don't do Mickey as well.
Mm-hmm.
You see. Hey, Goofy, you seen Pluto? Sure. Every time I go over to your house.
It's pretty good. Pretty good.
I've done better, but
Okay, so we know what it takes to be a massive nerd to where you have absolutely no time in your life for anything than to master these voices, these alternate voices. We've got, to the right of me, Euphigenia Doubtfire, and to the left, Mickey, Goofy, Hank Hill. Please.
and
Jealous much?
Kermit. I don't do Kermit very well.
folk. Kermit the Frog here.
There we go.
Oh.
That's pretty good.
Dear God.
It's not easy being green.
No, you have to sing.
So you have to do the singing.
Someday we'll find it, the Rainbow Connection. The
You know-
lovers, the dreamers, and me.
Someday we'll find it. Rainbow Connection. So you do a better one.
I don't know that song, though.
The lovers, the dreamers, and me.
Da 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 da.
I don't know the song.
You don't know the song.
I don't know the melody. I can't.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's a classic.
I'm not classy.
It's the same voice as Ernie. I think.
Pretty much.
Well,
Pretty
Jim
close.
Henson.
Rubber ducky, you're the one. You know, it's the same.
Oh my God.
You make bath time so much fun.
Phenomena.
Oh.
Phenomena.
Ian, be quiet, please. Go in your room or outside.
1, 2, and I'm not talking about buckle your shoe. Move your ass,
3,
child.
4. Shut that door.
Yes, might have gotten away with it too, if it hadn't been to those meddling kids.
They can be pretty appropriate if we don't.
I'm a vocational skills trainer, full-time psych major, SPARC Corps member, and a parent on the side.
Now here's a sensitive issue.
Uh-oh. For who?
Well, a lot of people.
Oh, okay.
Bring it on.
So under the category of intentional, psychics and mediums.
Oh.
So we're going to start pissing people off on our first show here.
Oh, gosh.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Some people.
No. I tried to change him, everyone, but it just wasn't possible. He is who he is.
Yeah, and ignore the yelling and noises in the background. We're actually doing this taping at a
Insane asylum. We're
Yes.
in an insane asylum where, and the noises you're hearing are the crazy people that are locked up and chained to the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're at Walmart.
Oh man. So
Okay.
so
anyway.
as far as psychics and mediums go, our experiences really haven't been that good.
Should they be called mediums or mediocre?
Some of them are less than mediocre.
Right. I can think of one in particular.
Now, I'm not saying there aren't gifted people out there. I really think there are. I
They're
think
not all like that.
Yeah, I think sensitives is probably a more apt description because I think that that really is at the core of it. Some are more sensitive than others. I think all of us are, just some more than others, and that goes for psychics too. I think there are some that are way less talented than they think they are. That counts as a cackle.
Yes.
Yes,
Do it again.
No. Come on. No.
Now you have to do the Miss Doubtfire again.
Do it. Just close your eyes and do it.
Get in the moment. Be a champion.
Take one for the team.
Hello, this is Mrs. Euphigenia Doubtfire here.
That's pretty good. I like that.
The cackle wasn't so much.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
It's
Stop.
the element of surprise that gets you.
It was. It was like, what?
I know we could just
Kind of like when he did his King of the Hill impressions the other day.
I don't know what you're talking about. Propane and propane accessories.
Zing.
Bobby?
Oh my god.
Excuse my stomach.
I don't got any funny voices I can do. I just have
Your cackle.
my mom voice, my drunk voice, and my in bed voice.
All of them are just as scary.
And so especially she does them all together at the same time. It's all one voice sometimes.
I sound like Emily Rose from that exorcism movie. Yeah.
Did she just slur?
I think so.
Why no?
I think you did. Is that number 2?
Okay, Officer Cameron.
No. Well, we got to stop. Once we start slurring, we got to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why? I'm not slurring.
No. I'm the same kind of person.
I'm not slurring.
I heard the slur.
You heard nothing.
That doesn't mean that it's from the water that she's drinking.
It's naughty water.
It just means maybe she's not a great talker.
It means my thoughts are too fast for my verbalization.
Not when you slow it down to half speed like that. And watch what you're saying.
Oh my gosh.
The skeleton was denied a bank loan. So anyways, what were we talking about? We were talking about
psychics and mediums and sensitives.
Yes.
She's not going to be able to do this.
The skeleton was denied a bank loan.
I think it was the human torch.
The human torch. Yes. What was the skeleton one?
I don't know. That's ridiculous.
The skeleton. What was it? If this stays on air, we'll get a bunch of emails. It was this, you dumbass.
Oh my gosh.
Took a shower. The skeleton ran out of shampoo in the shower. The human torch could not get a bank loan. The human torch. The human torch was denied a bank loan.
Maybe it wasn't even a skeleton.
I don't know. I think it was just the human torch.
Right. That was the bank loan.
Yeah.
But I thought there was a skeleton one.
I don't know. We'll have to go back and watch.
Tell me that woman joke that you told me last night, Cameron. Tell me that again. I'd like to hear that.
Oh yeah, this is a good one. Why do all women? Not all women. Why do women go to the bathroom in groups?
Groups?
Yeah.
Well, I have a lot of reasons, but not the one for the punchline. What is it?
Because all simple animals travel in herds.
I'm too scared to laugh at that.
That's not even really. What?
Well, I was trying. Oh, never mind.
I saw it on Discovery Channel.
That is just.
It's true then.
Oh my god.
That's tame.
You just
really
lost
bad
like
ones.
half our audience with that joke.
They're gone.
Yeah.
And the smart ones too.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. Most women in paranormal are, fairly fat anyway.
They're huge. I'm sorry, they're huge.
Yeah, so no big glass.
Okay.
Why is that?
Okay, we cannot.
No, I have no idea why that is.
Have a nice day. Be sure and tell them Large Marge sent ya.
It's like the Obese Paranormal Society or something. Or what would the acronym for that be?
Gee, OPS.
Oh.
Wow, someone should use that. Yeah. No, why is that? Seriously, what is it? Is it because we're always sitting around the floors with recorders and eating ho-hos, or what the hell's going on?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I mean, when
Other than
I work
Darcy.
in the field, I work in the field. I don't just sit there. I'm moving around.
She works it.
I'm hauling shit around.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
Preach it.
but I don't know. I mean, I can only guess that maybe people take up this hobby. A lot of people that take up this hobby probably, oh gosh, I'm probably going to lose the other half of our audience and we'll have no audience. A lot of people that take up this hobby probably don't have a lot of other stuff to do. I mean, let's just face it. They probably don't have
plenty of time to eat.
Intense jobs or lots of things that they have to be doing. Because to do this hobby and to do it right, I'm not even going to call it. It's like a second job. I don't even like to call it a hobby because there's so much more work put into it than you would put into, fucking building model trains or some shit.
Yeah, it's a passion too.
I mean, but I'm guessing that most people who do this don't have all these other things in their lives that they have to balance.
Like friends?
Friends,
Physical friends.
like marriages,
A workout routine.
work, jobs, Cheese of the Month Club, that sort of thing. But that's my guess.
I will make an observation. Not everybody knows this, but in high school, I was, in the 80s, I was, one of those typical goth high schoolers. And one thing I did notice is that there are so many fat chicks in the goth scene. And I really started to look at it. Why? Like when I'd go to the clubs and stuff, I'd be, because I'm also a psych student, I would sit and analyze the crowd and try and figure out the different personality types that were there. And trying to figure out why so many fat chicks gravitated toward the gothic scene. I mean, I never really quite nailed it down, but it was proportionally speaking, there was way more obese women than there was hot women.
It's because people big girls like the corsets with the lace-up thing in the back.
What's the acceptance? If you have the balls to be different compared to everybody else, and you can do that, you're going into a group that everybody already is different. So therefore they're going to be more accepting of you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
That's my theory. I don't know.
No, I think that's part of it. So they're hiding behind the lace and the crushed velvet.
Well, you got lace, you got crushed velvet, you got laced up corset,
and
weird
zippers.
things, and black lipstick. You can hide a lot of ugly with that.
Yeah, there's no spandex in the goth scene.
No.
Well, there didn't used to be. Maybe now.
So I think that Caleb's right that the bigger girls feel more accepted in that type of genre.
That could even be the same thing for the paranormal field. Not everybody is interested or would admit that they're interested in that type of field, and if you have that interest, that's really all you need to connect with somebody else.
If you're 40 years old and you're still living in your mom's basement, you might be into the paranormal.
But to be fair, it's not just women. I mean, I myself am packing a few extra pounds.
I fluctuate. That's all I'm going to say.
It's all water anyways.
I'm fairly svelte, and basically I'm an Adonis.
What?
Is that a dinosaur?
You're a Madonna? Oh, jeez, the llama.
I like big and I cannot lie. You other brothers can't deny. And when a girl walks in with an itty bitty waist and a round thing in your face, you get
as far as like software, because a lot of times the teams are all, we got headphones, we're listening, but we have these pictures and we can't quite tell. Not everybody is an expert when it comes to reviewing video and still photography evidence. Most of us aren't, okay? If you have a videographer or photographer on staff, hey, fantastic. But not everybody has that. So what can we do to at least help? Well, there's some software out there that will help. Some people know how to use Photoshop. It doesn't take much time. If you can get a copy of it, it can, some older copies are attainable.
Just the word Photoshop instills doctored and fake in my, I can't, Photoshop. It's been Photoshopped.
But you can also use it to detect things that people have done to a photograph. I use
Reverse Photoshop.
Yeah. So I use it constantly for that. And you can pick out when the resolution of a ghost that's been implanted into a lower resolution photo, it stands out. You can see it, and those filters are available in Photoshop. And you could probably pick it up in a lot of other different types of, digital photography software. But Photoshop has by far quite a few filters that most people can grasp within a very short period of time. You throw it in there, you apply a filter, you drag the sliders left and right, and you start to see things that pop out that you couldn't see from the original photograph. And that takes, maybe a few weeks of screwing around, but it has saved a lot of time of really seeing a photograph that's been doctored. And just about anybody can do it if they spend a few weeks really kind of digging into it.
Do you think that, Cameron, most teams will actually spend the time to learn how to do something like that so that they can distinguish between, what's real and what's not real? Or do you think that most people are going to jump that step like they always have and just do whatever's easy and whatever they think?
If they've stuck out this long to listen to this show, then maybe they care. If not, then I really don't give an F.
Well, I should really hope that they care.
Yeah, This show's only about people who care. If they
I mean,
didn't
honestly,
care.
this field needs people who are going to honestly contribute something to paranormal research, and the others need to get the hell out of the way.
Yeah, pretty much. Maybe we should just call it the Get the Hell Out of the Way show? No, I think SPARC After Dark's got a nice ring to it.
Yeah.
Anyway, another good one for photos, still shots, is JPEG Snoop. Basically, I think we talked about this before. If you edit a video, if you edit a still shot, then the fingerprint, the EXIF information is changed. And this particular application, JPEG Snoop, will actually tell you what application was used to edit the photograph.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I think you said that last time.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. It will also tell you, if it wasn't doctored, what type of camera it came out of.
Well, hell, what else do you need to know?
Well, because
I'm sold.
There are some cameras that you can do editing inside the camera. So people actually import the digital photo back into the camera.
Those are the people who have no lives and jobs and families or anything, time to do anything else.
Now, as far as audio, a lot of us use Audacity. I know that's kind of been the go-to app because I think it's free.
It is free.
Yeah.
I used that for many years.
And there's a few...
It's crap.
Yeah, it's okay for free. It's actually pretty good. But there are other ones that offer a lot more tools if you really want to get into it. WaveLab is another one. We use, as far as a wave editor, we use SoundForge here to really hone in and zoom in on waveforms.
I also use RX2. No?
Yeah, and RX2 is different. That would be the next level. If you really have the funds to really analyze audio at the highest level possible, then Isotope's RX2 is an amazing application. I've used it in studios for many years, and it's meant for sound repair and spectral analysis. But the tools that it offers for EVP work, which is not what it was intended for. It's meant for studio pro level audio repair and analysis and repair. So if you really can afford it, I think the basic version is like $500 or something like that, and the pro version is about $1,200. And you can afford that. I would highly recommend it if money was no object. It's an amazing piece of software. It has things such as honing in on specific frequencies and finding duplicate instances of a specific frequency within a gigantic sound file. So if you're able to find an anomaly within a half-hour sound file, and you choose that specific set of frequencies and tell it, hey, I want you to find me other instances of this quote-unquote EVP. It will search through the whole file and look for other instances that you haven't found. The noise reduction algorithms are unparalleled.
So now how do people get this software?
No, they have to go online. I mean, it's or purchase it at a pro music store.
And what's the average cost of said software?
Weren't you just listening?
Where have you been?
Good Lord.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was talking to another team member.
Maybe you should put down the cell phone.
Good Lord. Texting queen.
I'm not sure if you know this, but we're doing a radio show right
It's
now.
multitasking, people. It's multitasking. I've been doing it all damn day.
Yeah, like I said.
Cameron here double booked radio shows for me tonight, so.
You're just so damn popular. I know. So yeah, if at the very least, if you guys can get WaveLab or SoundForge, those work wonders as well. They're for different purposes. RX2, like I said, that's like the
Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Like what?
Like
what are they for?
Like what's that?
What is that? That's like the host of angels, the seraphim coming down and offering you a piece of software that you can use for
It's
EVP
angels.
research.
That was your angel
Yeah,
noise. That's the sound of angels?
I guess so.
Oh, I think I'd rather go to hell.
That's pretty.
Yeah.
As far as video analysis, now this can get pretty pricey as well. And there's not like tons that I could recommend. We use Vegas. And I think Sony. I think Sony does Vegas. But
Sony.
But
Vegas.
but that just like Photoshop, it's got tons of filters you can use. You can slow down to a very granular level and look at video through different brightness and gamma reduction. And no, don't do that. Get that.
Don't do that.
Anyway, I thought this was pretty funny. I think everybody else will like it. It's let's set it up. Basically, Shaggy and Scooby getting pulled over.
It's really long.
It's worth it.
So long. That happened to me this morning.
Will you be cool?
Bong rip?
I didn't notice that part.
Turn the music
listening to?
Sure thing, officer.
Where are you headed tonight?
Is it like there's this green monster, officer, sneaking around at the old cotton mill? We're heading out there to meet the gang and, try to catch it.
You don't know how many times I've done this.
A green monster.
Yeah, a real fatty, man.
You were driving a little erratic.
Okay.
Just step out of the van, please.
Punch it!
Never done that.
That didn't end well.
Oh, Shaggy.
Well, some of the things that will definitely help in an investigation to mitigate fraud and contamination. There are some things that teams can do as they're going in. One thing that most teams do, maybe not properly, I know that we do them at SPARC, is we do the daytime walkthroughs.
Absolutely.
Very important. Mm-hmm. For one, safety. You're not falling through any, open wells or whatever, depending what kind of investigation you're going into. But also because you need to do a few things while you're doing the daytime walkthrough. A great thing to do, of course, is interview the client if they're there. And as somebody is doing the actual walkthrough, take pictures and jot down a floor plan of the residence or of the area that you're doing, because once you walk away from that walkthrough, you need a battle plan, and it's great because you're not there any longer, and you need to do kind of a pre-investigation and a setup before you come walking back to that home or back to that residence or place of business, and you're just kind of running around randomly. You really need to have the battle plan of okay, here are the hot spots. You got to X off the hot spots. This is point A, point B, point C that the client was speaking of as far as the different phenomena that they occurred, and really creating an itinerary of exactly the events that are going to take place that evening. Because if you just say, oh, okay, Bob and Sarah, here's your voice recorder. Tom and Jan, here's your other voice recorder.
However,
go.
Let me interject here. I mean, this question, I was actually on an interview with Haunted Voices Radio with Todd Bates earlier in the evening, and we got a question from a person, part of a paranormal team, that asked, do you have a checklist of specific things that you do on every investigation that you go on? And my retort to that was, no, we don't have a checklist of things that we do for every investigation that's necessarily the same. I mean, obviously we're going to tailor what we're doing on that investigation around the information that we gather during the history and the research, and then the pre-client interview, the walkthrough, those sorts of things, all custom tailor, what we're going to do on that investigation based on the type of activity that's being reported there, the claims, all of that. So it's never the same on every investigation. It needs to be tailored specifically to that location. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of the amateur teams out there that go, they have, their forms and their document. We have them too. However, it's not the same in every location that you go into. It's going to be different every time. And you have to make sure that it's different every time, because if you're doing the same thing on every investigation and just ignoring, you know, what the claims are and all of that, then it's not going to work.
This is not as hot a party as I had anticipated.
It gets really stale and boring too if you're like going along the same regimen every single time. Do you like that segue? No, that didn't work.
We'll get there. Point being, though, you may not have the exact same checklist, but you always have some.
You have a way that you go about doing things. It's going to be different based on the location and the information that you receive going into that location.
You always have a game plan, though. Any investigation is going to be different, and there's going to be different ideas that you have, different orders that you do, any of the things you would do in on an investigation. But no matter the differences, you always have a game plan before that investigation actually starts.
Based on the information you get prior.
Exactly, which is why it's going to be different always.
So here, I'll kill two birds with one stone. When you're creating your itinerary and you're lining up your EVP sessions, some locations are big enough where you can run concurrent EVP sessions.
Yeah, like Waverly.
Yeah, and some locations you can't do that. When you're in a location where you can hear the other team conducting an EVP session down the hall or even downstairs if you're like in a hardwood floor house. Obviously, the best thing to do if you can is to stagger your EVP sessions if at all possible. If you can't do that, then maybe look to see if maybe you have too many people on the investigation. You don't need to have 18 people in a 4-bedroom house.
No.
Okay,
And if some people have to wait outside, they have to wait outside. You need to go in groups of 2 in a small location and do it that way. I know that with a lot of teams, you know, everyone wants to be involved, everyone wants to participate, they want to be up front and in the middle of the action, but then you end up in, you know, a tiny location with, you know, 4 or 5, sometimes up to 8. Oh, I read a story about 14 investigators in a very small location. It's just nothing but contamination. I mean, anything you catch is going to have to be thrown out at that point.
And it's all about, at that point, it's really just about, you know, the good old ghost story, and has nothing to do with the client's needs or parapsychological research.
Yeah. Sacrifices people. If you have to wait outside, you got to wait outside. Go in and wait you wait your turn. You go in, you do your thing, you come out, you rotate through.
Or if you're team lead, as founder, you know, don't be afraid. If you guys have founders, don't be afraid to only have a portion of the team on certain investigations.
Exactly.
You know,
you don't all have to be there.
It's not a party.
There's so much more to do. I mean, it's not just about the investigation. I mean, you can have people doing the research. You can have people doing evidence review. You can have people doing reveals. You don't have to have a large team on one investigation unless it calls for a large team of people.
Mm-hmm.
I've sat out investigations before. It sucks, but I've done it.
Yeah,
because it's the best thing to do.
It's for the greater good.
It's for the greater good.
Yeah. So as far as making sure that evidence is good, obviously one of the best things to do, you really should have 2 people on teams. If you were breaking up people on an investigation, you need to have at least 2 people. Never have a single person, because anything that you capture or witness that isn't recorded, basically it's gone.
It's thrown out. And it's a heart-sinking feeling when that happens.
Yeah.
And it always seems to happen that way. Always.
Yep. They picture the most gullible person in the group. And but if you're able to capture evidence in more than one way, so if you can get audio and video at the same time, obviously that's fantastic. But that's not always the case. That's, you know, that would be ideal. But if you are running an EMF meter and you are running an EVP session, that's fantastic, because anytime that you can corroborate one evidence with another, and there are concurrent anomalies, that just supports everything that you're doing.
I would also suggest mixing up your team members if you have a large group. I wouldn't send, you know, the 2 besties into one location together. I would mix it up. Well, not only that, but I mean, the power of suggestion is going to be even more probable in that sort of circumstance when you have 2 people that are very close in one location together. I heard that. Obviously, you know, I would mix it up and put maybe people that don't necessarily work together all the time on a day-to-day basis together and try it that way.
Yeah, because it's a good cross-check, I think. Someone who's willing to...
Most people do that in most organizations when
Yeah.
they want the best results. They put people together that aren't,
Well, the government does it. That's why we're in a gridlock.
cozy. with
Checks
each
and
other.
balances. It's good to have small checks and balances in the teams you create.
Yes.
And if you need to break up your people that are chatty, like myself, we're just, we're talking people's ears
I'd
off.
rather do an EVP session with Caleb than with Cameron. I mean, Cameron and I have been very good friends for a long time. We're closer than Caleb and I are, so it would make more sense for me to do an EVP session with Caleb. I think that would yield the best results than if I was, in a location with Cameron doing it. I just, nothing against Cameron, but I think that, that scientifically would be the best thing to do.
I love telling you you're wrong, though.
Shut up. See, this is why we can't do this. This is what it would be like.
All right. This chick is toast.
Ha ha.
So yeah, staggering teams is a great method. Breaking up your chatty and talkative people and your BFs, that's probably optimal as well.
Yeah.
Another thing too, if you have to run concurrent sessions of recorded evidence or burst captures, whatever you're doing, and the location is small enough where you can hear the other teams conducting their sessions, you really should do this. First of all, at the beginning of the EVP session, have each group do a voice sample saying, "This is so and so in in bedroom number 1, team or group number 1. This is me," whatever. That way you get a reverb impulse sample of their voice in that environment. And then after they're done, have the other team in the other room that's down the hall or downstairs, if you can hear them at all, have them do the same thing afterwards. Because if you can pick up those small voices downstairs, it will do so much later for evidence review. If you suddenly hear a little voice in the background, if you have that sample of what it was at the beginning of the EVP session.
So it's like a fingerprint. So basically, the reason you would do that is when you were going back to review evidence, if you heard something and could not distinguish whether that was another investigator or possibly a disembodied voice or an EVP, you could look at that voice print and you can compare that with the voice prints that you collected in the beginning of the investigation and then rule out
It'll
if
save
that's
you
someone else.
hours and hours of passing around the headphones of everybody listening to just another investigator that was down the hall sneezing.
Well, that's amazing.
SPARC After Dark. Underrated ghost movies of all time, baby.
Okay, so go ahead. I got a few here, but
I got one.
Okay.
Stir of Echoes.
I think it's underrated.
It scared the
shit
out of me.
Yeah, I think it had a nice twist
Kevin
to it.
Bacon. Good. What? Oh my God.
Go and say it. You know you want to say it.
He's a hot piece of ass. And a very convincing, crazy person.
Another one too, 13 Ghosts. I know it's a little corny.
I love that one.
I know Dale on the interview. He said that 13 Ghosts, the original, is one of his favorites.
There's an original?
Yeah.
I really want to see the original now.
I've never seen the original.
It's not quite as crazy tech as the one that...
Probably not as much nudity.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Like that bitch that slips her wrist in the bathtub or whatever, and it's like bloodbath everywhere.
It's pretty hot.
Everything's
It's the
Yeah, even with the blood, still pretty hot.
God damn.
If you're into that sort of thing.
I don't know.
Blood and boobs.
I like the Juggernaut. He was my favorite.
Yeah. Of course, What Lies Beneath. I would,
Michelle Pfeiffer.
That's not underrated. Yeah, it's not underrated.
What?
But I think people that weren't into the Hitchcockish feel, really didn't get the movie.
So basically, someone got drowned in a lake, and the ghost comes back and haunts her, tells her that her husband's a murderer. I don't know. It's like, whatever.
She's trying to help her.
Yeah.
It's kind of a ripoff, like you said, mentioning Hitchcock. It's kind of a ripoff of Psycho. Instead of a shower, it's a bath scene.
It's like a lake.
Well, I think that...
Well, there's the bath scene primarily.
Or okay, yeah.
That ruined, just like Psycho did for showers. I think that even says it on the cover of the movie. What this movie does for bathtubs, what Psycho did for showers.
Yeah.
But it was an homage. It was an homage, I think, to Hitchcock. I think Robert Zemeckis, which I'm pretty sure did the movie. I think he even said that it was an homage to Hitchcock.
It was. I think it was well done. It was good. I liked that movie a lot.
Ooh, I got one. Let's talk about the Blair Witch Project.
I liked it more than some people did. I understand why some people didn't like it, the whole nausea effect. I totally get that.
Whatever, I didn't get nauseous. I saw it in theaters. It freaked me out.
I can't even watch
couldn't
Call of
tell if
Duty.
it was real or not real. I didn't know it was based on true story or not. It looked like a real documentary. I don't know.
Well, it was the first mockumentary, right?
Mockumentary. Yeah. That's an amazing terminology.
That was the big thing when that came out. I'm sure there has been another mockumentary before Blair Witch Project, but none that
Spinal Tap.
So
when she finds those teeth in that pouch or whatever, that was horrifying.
There's a lot of horrifying things about that movie. I personally, it leads up to nothing, in my opinion. The end of the movie is...
It did kind of suck.
It leaves you with nothing. And with a movie... I like movies that really mess with your mind, not necessarily show you the monster or the ghost or the alien or whatever, till the very end. But I like the psychological aspect of it, which when the movie ended, you didn't know what the heck just happened. But I do want a little more than that. And for everything that was escalating up to that point in Blair Witch Project, I thought it was really good. But then it just ended with nothing. And
What the hell was that?
Precisely.
Yeah.
That was obnoxious. Let's talk about, I got one that maybe is not on our list here. Let's talk about Poltergeist 3.
Definitely better than the steaming pile of crap that Poltergeist 2 was.
No, okay, Poltergeist 2 sucked. It was awful. It was awful. Well, Poltergeist 3, when she's in the building with the mirrors, like everything is mirrored, like the hallways are mirrored, her whole apartment is mirrored, there's mirrors everywhere, and the ghosts are in the mirrors. And she's older, she's a teenager. This is right before she actually passed away from Rye syndrome, the little girl that played Caroline.
She passed away from rice?
Rye syndrome. Rye syndrome.
Rye bread?
No. It's an allergy to aspirin.
Oh.
Yeah.
I could see myself passing away from rye bread.
Yeah, me too. I hate it.
Well, anyway, she passed away. But
sorry.
Okay, so Poltergeist 1...
Death by pumpernickel. Terrible way to
go. Poltergeist 1, epic. I don't care what anybody says. Yeah. It was amazing for its time. Whoever did that movie did some research when they did that movie. The second one...
Wasn't it Spielberg? Was it Spielberg? No, it was... Yeah.
Spielberg did Poltergeist? I don't know. It was amazing.
Or he at least produced, or some. I thought he had some hand
part
in
of it.
Yeah.
It definitely looks like a Spielberg movie.
The second one, the third one was pretty good. I don't know what happened after the girl died of Rye syndrome. That's why there's no more. There'd probably be 15 Poltergeists.
I think there's 3 dead people from the Poltergeist series already.
Are there?
Yeah, the older daughter died. I think the son's still alive, but. Yeah. I don't know.
The little girl, Carol Ann, she died after... Actually, I think maybe she died... I'm not 100% sure. This may be rumor or urban legend or whatever, but I believe that she passed away towards the tail end of the making of Poltergeist 3.
Whoa. So we're talking about real life?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, the older daughter, she was, if I'm not mistaken, she was shot...
The brunette.
By a gunshot on her front doorstep.
Right. That's what I heard as well.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So...
That's crazy. I'll tell you what that is.
And painful.
That's crazy. Well, probably not. Probably didn't. The same could be said with any good movie that has sequels and trilogies. The Exorcist.
Oh, Exorcist. Let's talk about all the added scenes that they added into the new release of the original Exorcist that I did not know existed.
I didn't even know there was a release.
How could they have left out that whole backwards spider bit?
Oh my God! Where she's coming down the stairs all distorted.
Why would that end up on the cutting room floor?
That's in
I
the
heard
original.
that it's not.
No, it's not.
Okay, maybe I've seen that.
It's in the new version. And this is what had happened, right? I've seen
blood or something.
No, I had seen the original Exorcist countless times. My mom let me watch that when I was 5 years old.
That's some good parenting right there.
Exactly. She also let me drink Tab from a bottle, like with a nipple.
And
like
you're
when I was
alive
a
now?
child.
How?
I know. I don't know. I do not know. However, I'd seen the original Exorcist multiple times, and it still scares me. I mean, every time. I mean, it's for its time, it was horrifying. I mean, it was really scary. But then they came out with this remake. It was not a remake. It was like a remastered version where they added in scenes that weren't in the original one, like outtakes. They like melded them in there and so I watched it again thinking it was the original one, but it wasn't. It was a remastered one. So there were all these added scenes that I didn't ever remember seeing, and they were horrifying. They scared me all over again. Like that backwards, she's coming down the stairs all upside down, it's horrible.
You know, one of my favorites, which kind of has some dark humor in it, so it kind of is it's sort of like a cult, has a cult following, but I love it. I've seen it probably at least a dozen times. Frighteners with Michael.
That's the one you tried to get me to watch, and I kept falling asleep.
Yeah, well, that's just because you have poor taste in movies.
No, that's because you're boring.
No, it's if you like the dark humor that's in it, it's a great kind of, I don't want to say it's hokey because
it's a comedy. It's not like a seriously scary movie.
Yeah,
it's
no.
It's not a well, I guess it's a ghost movie.
No, yeah,
but it's not a horror movie.
It's got plenty of blood and people getting their heads shot off, and it's got an insane asylum and somebody running around with a shotgun blowing patients and doctors away. It's pretty dark.
They're blowing patients?
Yeah.
Away.
They're blowing them away.
They're blowing them away.
You must clarify what that means. That's why we use grammar, people. Either they're blowing patients away or they're blowing patients away.
Away.
There's a difference.
I'm so blown away.
Yeah, I can't really compare it to anything. Maybe Death Becomes Her, as far as like a brand of dark humor, but even more so. And it has a full ghost backstory. So it's different. It's not serious in any stretch of the imagination, but it definitely isn't for kids, I would say, because it can be pretty dark. But but I love Frighteners. But that's a personal thing.
Candyman actually make that list?
Yeah, because it wasn't very popular at the time, and it's not really a ghost per se. It's this weird kind of
African American mortician.
No, it's not a mortician.
Well, when he in that, he's the one who like.
It's a slave story.
What?
A tortured slave.
Candyman.
Yes.
So he only attacks white people?
No, actually he kills indiscriminately, but he really latches onto this pretty white woman.
One that's not on here that I really like, that seems like a lot of people don't like, so maybe I'm crazy, is The Others.
Oh, I love The Others.
Yeah, but I don't know I thought about it, but it's not underrated because I think it's pretty popular. I think a lot of people.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nicole Kidman did fabulous.
Yeah.
I think it's underrated because most people that I've talked to about it, or got their opinion, they weren't big fans of it. They didn't really like it.
I loved it.
It's because it's kind of slow.
Slow for some people.
It's slow for some people. I think people that are into this sort of field and this sort of hobby or passion or whatever you want to call it would probably it would hold more stock with them than other people because it is slow, but the concept behind it is actually pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. The Twilight Zone, the movie.
Okay, I've never seen that.
Oh my gosh.
The 80s one?
I think so, yeah.
Like
Okay,
that?
so listeners out there, anybody who's seen that, you probably know what I'm talking about. It doesn't necessarily have to do anything with ghosts. The Twilight Zone. It's the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily like it's a movie, but it's a bunch of different stories, one after the other. I saw that. I don't even know how old I was. I was a kid, and there's John Lithgow.
Mm-hmm.
That's a popular one. He's in the flying in the plane. It's a thunderstorm, and there's like some monster on the wing, and he's freaking out. Nobody else is seeing it. He's the only one that can see it. He's going nuts on the plane. Everybody thinks he's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the one that most people remember. The one that really scared me was
Dan Aykroyd, at the very beginning.
Oh, whoa! I don't. How did that one go?
That was where he was. You want to see something really scary? And you're like, yeah,
they're driving in the car.
Yeah.
They're in the car at night. Yeah, and then he's like a crazy monster thing. Yeah. No, there's one where I think it's like a kid, and I don't exactly remember what happens. All I remember is this stupid, ridiculously fake-looking, like Tasmanian devil sort of thing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that scared the crap out of me.
For me, it was the bunny coming out of the damn hat. that demon rabbit that came out. He pulled out this demon rabbit that some satanic donkey thing going on.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a great bit.
But that always got me. That effect, stop motion, is what they used for that.
Yeah.
And from that point on, any stop motion thing, whether it's I don't know, it just doesn't look right. It's a cool effect that they used to use because that's kind of all they had, and at the time it was groundbreaking, and that's really awesome. But oh my gosh, there was just something about that because it's so fake looking. It's not natural.
I'm gonna have to watch this now. How about Freak Show? Remember that one?
I've never
the
seen
short
that.
stories. Freak
Tales
Show.
from the Crypt?
No, it's kind of like Tales from the Crypt. It's Freak Show,
There was a show in the 80s.
Guess not. Move it on.
Yeah. There was a show in the 80s called The Dark Room, and not many people remember it because it was like a dark version of Amazing Stories, whatever. And man, there were some creepy aspects, but it only lasted like about a season at most, and then disappeared. But what was incredibly frightening? If anyone remembers, Large Marge.
Oh,
Large Marge!
Pee-wee's Big Adventure, baby.
Yes!
Yeah.
That was good. That's some classic Ghost right there.
Oh, God, with the eyeballs that come popping out of her skull.
Oh, yeah.
Good stuff.
Goes into the bar.
Yeah.
What does he say? Something about Large
Marge sent me.
Yeah. Large. Did you say Large Marge? She's been dead for however long. Yeah.
Yeah, they all
Just in general.
everybody stops talking.
Yeah.
The room goes silent.
That's how we expect an investigation. Everybody stops in the local diner.
Yeah.
Looks at you like you're crazy.
Let's just take a minute right now, even though it's totally not really pertaining to what we're talking about. But that movie, Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Oh, it's amazing.
Out of respect, let's just take a moment of silence for that movie, shall we?
God, yes.
Here we go. Okay. I don't think that movie...
He gets up on that bar and he's doing the... Da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway.
We don't need to hear the song.
That's enough respect for the movie.
I have more respect for him for whacking off in an adult theater.
Whatever, people whack
and
off
getting
all
caught
the
and
time.
not caring. I love that. I love that about Paul Rubens.
His name is Paul Rubens?
I wouldn't exactly say respect, but to each his own. Anyways, so I think that's probably enough for underrated ghost movies.
Yeah,
there's always going to be
there's
tons
gonna
and
be more,
tons.
yeah.
This is not as hot a party as I had anticipated.
Thank you for dropping in and listening to the inaugural show of SPARC After Dark. We thank Dale Kaczmarek for joining us, and of course Caleb Benedict and the ever lovely Darcy Ling. Thank you so much, folks, and we'll see you next time. Well, that's not the right song. I don't know. Maybe we should use, the sign-out song. Thanks a lot.
It occurred to me we really haven't had a completely successful test of this equipment.
Thanks, folks. We hope to see you next time.
I blame myself so hard.
Next time, we promise to have our pants on. Maybe.
Let's get ready. Switch me on.
Bye-bye.
The problem with you is do something so real.
Welcome to SPARC After Dark.
Human sacrifice.
dogs and cats living together